Hello freaks, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is JJ. I'm both an author and a metalhead, and here on my channel I talk about the stories behind rock and metal concept albums. Today, this video comes as a request from my metalhead community. This is the pros and cons of hitchhiking by Roger Waters. Roger Waters, of course, being of Pink Floyd. And this was a fun one. I had never listened to this album before, and I do like Pink Floyd, but I'm not like a huge, crazy like Pink Floyd fan. So this is my first experience with this album, and it's an interesting one. So some background before we get started on this. This album came out in, I'm sorry, there's like one gnat in this room and it keeps flying at my face. So I'm sorry if I'm like fucking ninja crazy in this video. Sorry. Anyway, this album came out in 1984, and Roger Waters had written this concept album at the same time that he wrote The Wall. So he kind of proposed both of these albums to the rest of the members of Pink Floyd at the time. It was like, hey, which one do you guys want to do? The other one I'm going to use as a solo album. So they picked The Wall, and so this is what we get under his solo album. And it's a really interesting story. I've never seen it done before in this way. It's done in kind of like real time. You know, our protagonist kind of falls asleep in this dream that starts at 4:30 in the morning, and then it goes to like 5:12 in the morning. So it's like, you know, the length of the album is within that time period. So originally the album was released on like vinyl and cassette, and Waters added like a 5-second like gap in between there to allow the listener to actually like flip the record or turn the cassette in order to keep with like the exact timeline of this album. So I thought that was really interesting and a really cool concept. Before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe and feel free to join my metalhead community. Link is down in the description. It's totally free, and from there you get access to bonus content, and you also get access to my suggestion box. And since this video comes as a request from my suggestion box, this is just me proving that I do actually do the videos that you guys suggest from there. So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so disclaimer, as always, this is just my personal interpretation of the lyrics. I did try to listen to, you know, some interviews with Roger Waters. I also, you know, looked on online forums. So this is kind of like my personal interpretation, but has also been influenced by other fans' interpretations as well. So like our protagonist's name is Reg. I couldn't find anywhere where it's like Roger Waters had specifically said that that was the name of the protagonist, but it could just be one of the fan names that was assigned to this protagonist. But I like when we have a name for our protagonist, so I'm running with the name Reg for this story. Anyway, we start with track 1, 4:30 a.m. Apparently they were traveling abroad. So our protagonist, Reg, is lying in bed beside his wife, and he begins kind of talking in his sleep, and he enters this really vivid dream. He dreams that him and his wife are driving, you know, just leaving the border from some other country, Germany maybe, I'm not really sure, and they end up picking up 2 hitchhikers, a man and a woman, while they're driving cross country. And so Reg gets the hots for the female hitchhiker, and when they pull off to the road to, you know, get some food and whatever, he immediately begins propositioning this woman. That takes us to track 2, 4:33 a.m. running shoes. So Reg and the hitchhiker just kind of sneak off, and he cheats on his wife with this hitchhiker. And, you know, they have a fun old time until they are caught. And that brings us into track 3, 4:37 a.m. Arabs with knives in West German skies. So here we kind of go back to Reg being asleep in his room beside his wife, and oh, this fucking gnat! It's going for my eyeballs. So Reg is kind of roused from sleep. He kind of dips in and out of consciousness throughout this album, but he quickly falls back asleep, where he re-enters, you know, the dream that he was in, and he and this hitchhiker woman run away to Germany together, and together they, you know, they drink and eventually check into a hotel to do the nasty. So yeah, he's just going full steam ahead, cheating on his wife here. Anyway. That takes us to track number 4, 4:39 a.m. for the first time today, part 2. Okay, so why is part 2 coming before part 1? I don't know. I tried kind of looking at it like, oh, maybe they're like sort of interchangeable. Like if I were to put part 1 in this spot, would it still work out? And it kind of does, but I don't know, not exactly. So that's the one thing I left kind of unanswered in this concept explanation. I don't know why part 2 comes before part 1. I don't know. Please tell me your ideas, comments down below why you think part 2 comes before part 1, because it didn't fit in my concept when I was putting this explanation together. Anyway, sorry. But getting back to the story. So Reg and this hitchhiker get it on, like I said. And Reg in the real world begins kind of talking in his sleep, saying, stay with me, probably wishing that, he can kind of stay in this dream world forever. His consciousness perhaps realizes that he might be waking up soon, and he's just trying to stay in this dream, and live out this fantasy for a little longer. So his wife hears him talking in his sleep, and she's not really quite sure what to make of his dream that he's having. And that takes us into track 5, 4:41 a.m., Sexual Revolution. This one was a bit of a mystery to me. My take on it is that he enters into a relationship with this hitchhiker woman, and he is determined to not let this current relationship become like the way things are in his marriage with his wife. So him and his wife have been running into some problems lately, and I think he feels like the flame of passion is kind of fizzled out, and they're arguing, fighting, the typical like husband-wife, not getting along type of thing. And so things with this new girl are going swimmingly, but he begins to kind of see signs of things starting to make a turn for the worst. But he's kind of so desperate to hold on to this fantasy, to hold on to what he has with this hitchhiker woman, that he kind of chooses to ignore it. Basically. And so after an argument with his new dream girlfriend, Reg wakes up in a cold sweat, wakes up beside his wife. She knows something is up. She's like, okay, you've been talking in your sleep. It sounds like there's something going on in this dream of yours. Like, what gives? And he thinks he's caught, he thinks, it's sort of like that first when you wake up and you're still thinking that like the dream that you just had is reality before your mind catches up and you're like, oh wait, that was just a dream. I think he has this moment of like pure panic where he's like, oh shit, I cheated on my wife and now I'm caught. So he, is like all terrified. But then we realize that he didn't actually wake up. Like he is still dreaming. So in his dream, he woke up to his wife being like, you cheated on me. But this is actually just still part of the dream that he's had. The dream within a dream. We've got some inception going on here. Then we get on to track number 6, 4:47 a.m., The Remains of Our Love. So Reg is sort of in this limbo between like half awake and half asleep, or at least that's kind of how I look at it in this track. And here I kind of think we flip back and forth between reality and dreamland. So Reg dreams that his wife caught him cheating, and in the real world he is talking in his sleep, confessing to what he did. And in his dream he kind of just like waits for her to explode on him. He knows she's going to be pissed and it's going to be like a whole fight, but instead she just kind of laughs it off and was like, hey, it's just a dream, it's okay. And she begins talking to him while he's still kind of half asleep, half awake, and she begins talking to him while he's still kind of like half asleep, half awake. She's trying to kind of like work out their marital problems, and he's still like not quite processing in the real world just yet. He's still in this limbo. And so she begins, like proposing ways that they can fix things between them, and she asks him if they can move out to the country together like they had always talked about. And, him being kind of desperate to keep her from leaving him and to kind of fix things between them, he agrees to move out to the country. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's do it. So he says okay in his sleep. And his wife, of course, thinks that he's like fully awake when he's agreeing to this. And so she holds him to the agreement when he actually does wake up fully. But while Reg is kind of dipping in and out of the dreamscape, he dreams that he and his wife and their 2 kids hop in the car, and from there they begin driving to Wyoming. So they're in this dream, he's in the States apparently. But it's only a dream, and when Reg wakes up for real, he realizes what he agreed to while he was half asleep, and still feeling guilty about cheating on his wife in his dream. He ends up holding to his promise that he didn't really realize that he had made. And on to track 7, 4:50 a.m., Go Fishing. This is my favorite track on the album. I feel like this whole album is like the perfect like driving at night soundtrack. I don't know if you're like going out for a long drive in the evening time, like a long cross-country road trip. I don't know. This is a good album for it. Sorry, getting back to the story here. 4:50 a.m., Go Fishing. That spring, Reg and his family move out from the city and they move to the countryside and basically live off-grid. Reg sees this as like a new start, new opportunity to rebuild his marriage and spend more time with his family. And at first everything is going wonderful. They build a house and live off the land, the kids go fishing and they get in touch with nature, and he's able to rekindle his marriage. But as fall approaches, things begin to get a little bit harder as far as like their living situation goes. And with the difficulty of daily life comes the problems popping up between relationships. And so the same problems that they kind of had in the city kind of come back to the surface when things get a little bit tough while they're living out in the country. And so life gets difficult, and he and his wife fight. So eventually they have a friend come to visit them and, see how this, new strange life that they're living is turning out for them. But this friend that comes to visit, his wife ends up falling in love with him. And by winter, their marriage is totally over. And he tells his wife to go run off with her new lover. And she does. So Reg then moves the kids back to the city after this fallout. Next up, we have track 8, 4:56 a.m. for the first time today, part 1. Again, not sure why these are flipped here. It means something. I just don't know what it means. Tell me in the comments. Anyway, this track is basically just Reg wallowing in misery over the end of his marriage. And that takes us into track 9, 4:58 a.m. Done roaming, done Karen, done living. Reg finds himself hitchhiking on the side of the road. And a trekker picks him up, and Reg just begins telling him his whole life story, complaining about his life and giving them this whole woe is me sad tale. Reg has grown pretty bitter and hateful and tells the truck driver, how much he loathes his ex-wife and her new lover that used to be his friend. And yeah, he's just filled with anger and rage and self-pity. And he thinks he might be sick just thinking about his wife and his friend hooking up. And he just keeps going on and on to the point where the trucker ends up throwing him out. He's like, I've had enough of this sob story. I'm done. Get out of my truck. And on to track 10, 5:01 a.m., the pros and cons of hitchhiking. So Reg is back on the road walking with his thumb sticking out, waiting for another ride since the truck driver threw him out. He encounters a number of people on this hitchhiking journey. First, a Hell's Angel stops and breaks his hand. Then he ends up hooking up with some housewife. And kind of, I see this track as kind of like reality melting into this kind of surreal dreamscape. And we can't quite tell if Reg is dreaming or awake. It has this very surreal quality to it. But either way, Reg begins to sort of look at life a little bit differently through all these strange experiences and people that he encounters while hitchhiking. So, he was once the cheater in his dream, cheating on his wife, and now he is the cheated, when his wife cheats on him with his friend. And he was once the driver, and now he is the hitchhiker. So he's kind of seeing things from the other side of the fence. And this new perspective kind of helps him see that he is not any different really from anyone else in life. And you're kind of just one decision away from a totally different life than you had before. So, he's able to kind of empathize with people in other situations, whereas he would have maybe looked down on them before. And that takes us straight into track 11, 5:06 a.m., Every Stranger's Eyes. So Reg arrives at this truck stop, and he, like I said, sort of begins to empathize with these strangers that he encounters. He is able to put himself in their shoes as he has been both the victim and the abuser in these recent life experiences that he's had. So everyone around him is just trying to, go about their life as best as they can, being, flawed people with their individual problems. And so Reg has this epiphany, that helps him to better understand his wife. So he suddenly wakes from a dream. What? Yeah. So we realize that he's been dreaming this whole time. He never moved out to the countryside. That was all part of the dream. Him hitchhiking on the side of the road, all part of a dream. None of that was real. And so he wakes up for, real this time, actually wakes up. Not like an Inception situation. He wakes up in reality on Earth. And he lies there beside his wife, and he realizes how much he's been taking her for granted. He decides he wants to turn things around and vows to devote himself to her fully to save their marriage. And on to the 12th and final track on this album, we have 5:11 a.m., The Moment of Clarity. Reg reaches out to his wife, so relieved that he's no longer dreaming, and so thankful that she is still there beside him. And here, I believe we just have him kind of reconfirming his love and dedication to her. And yeah, he has come full circle, learned so much throughout this dream that he had, which was really only whatever, the length of this album, but it gave him a whole new perspective on life and let him see what it would be like to live without her. And so, yeah, he goes forth really dedicated to work things out with her and stop taking her for granted and stop living these fantasies of cheating on her with other women. So I think that's kind of the whole point of this album, is just, you know, seeing things from other people's point of view and not getting wrapped up in your own selfishness. So yeah, I thought it has a good, you know, a good positive, happy ending, good message, which is kind of nice because a lot of the albums that I cover have really tragic endings. I really feel like I should start keeping score of how many of these albums end happy and how many of them end like tragically. I feel like I should do that. That would be kind of fun. Have like a little like scoreboard on the back. Maybe I'll do that one day. Anyway, sorry about the setup here. I'm still moving. I know I've been saying that for the past like 3 months of videos, but I'm still moving and things are getting shuffled around. Anyway, if you have other thoughts on this album, if you have different interpretations, which, you know, everyone is entitled to their own interpretation, but I'm curious to know about them, so please drop all of that down in the comments below. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want to get notified when I put out other content such as this. Join my Metalhead community to request other videos. Anyway, thanks for watching. Till next time. So Reg is back on the Reg is back on the road.